Hello there, my fellow myth and fantasy nerds. My name is Tanner, and I'd like to welcome you back to my YouTube channel. Now, this week's video will be installment number 6 of my series where I introduce you to the D&D characters that I've created but have not played yet. As mentioned in my previous videos, link to the playlist up in the cards and in the description down below, I decided to break this series down by character race, or species, or ancestry, or whatever you prefer. And this week, I'll be going over my half-elf characters. Now, half-elves are really what it says on the tin. They're beings who are half-elf, half-human, living in two worlds, yet not truly belonging to either. They're said to combine the best traits of both their ancestries. The ambition, curiosity, and inventiveness of humans, combined with and tempered by the artistic tastes, love of nature, and refined senses of the elves. Now, before I move on, I've got a few things to tell you about these characters. First of all, this group of characters may be one of the few groups with the most diverse backgrounds and backstories that I've written. Second of all, this is also the group with the most amount of characters that I've made. Normally, I have about one character for each class that I have listed. So, one Bard, one Warlock, one Sorcerer, one Druid, one Wizard, one Barbarian. However, in this case, one of the class lists, specifically the Warlock list, has a few extra characters. So make sure you leave a like on this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe down below, since that always helps. And without further ado, allow me to introduce to you the first character in the 6th group of D&D characters that I've created. Oh, Leo! You called, Tanner? Ah! Greetings and salutations, dear viewers! My name is Leofinas-Half-Elf Bard extraordinaire. But please, call me Leo. All my friends do. Now, I'm sure you wish to hear my backstory. And oh, what a tale, what a tale! My story starts, like all stories, with my mother, a single woman, the disgraced daughter of elven nobility, taken in by a traveling caravan of performers while she was pregnant with me. Now, growing up, my mother never described my father to me, and every time I asked, she would immediately change the subject. Those performers in the caravan became a sort of surrogate family to us, and as such, I have had several aunties, uncles, and cousins. I took part in the caravan's entertainment for coin, whether as a performer or as someone behind the scenes. Now, when I felt the need, I left of my own free will to pursue my own journey. Before I left, I was given a special crest with the performer's symbol on it, so that I would be welcomed back if I was to return. Now, Tanner's plan, once he plays me to the correct level, of course, is for me to become a College of Glamour bard, similar to Gwys, who you met back in the Centaur video. Tanner sees this quite fitting, since the Elva, and by extension the Half-Elves, are distantly related to the Fae, and the College of Glamour is very Fae-coded. Now, my highest score is obviously going to be my Charisma, which, in my case, once you factor in the ability score increases you get from being a half-elf, is at 19, which really is one step down from the best you can have. My worst score, on the other hand, is once again my strength at 7. I suppose when you're a bard, music and magic trumps physical strength. As for my character alignment, I identify as chaotic good. We half-elves tend towards being chaotic due to our elven and fey heritage. However, we tend to be good and evil in equal measure, akin to our more human relatives. Anyway, it was a pleasure to make your acquaintance, of course. And now I shall pass it over to the next character. Oh, Cynder! Yes, Leo? Oh, hello. My name is Cynder, also known as Falword Treefetter. And as with the others you're going to meet, I'm also a half-elf. However, I'm a warlock. And honestly, my backstory couldn't be any more different than Leo's. You see, I was born the half-elf son of two retired adventurers. My mother, a human, used to tell me stories about their past adventures, and my elven father provided for us as a merchant. One day, when I was very young, my mother passed, and a few years later, my father remarried an elven noblewoman who had two daughters of her own. We lived happily for a time until my father was killed by bandits on the road. After that, my stepmother and my stepsisters showed their true colors, and they started treating me as little better than a servant. They treated me this way because, as they were full elf and I'm only half, they saw me as a second class citizen. This went on for many, many years until one night I had a vision in which I saw a beautiful woman dressed in clothes the color of the sea, with hair the color of the sky, and eyes that sparkled like sapphires. She introduced herself as Azura, the Lady in Blue, and she told me that she was once my mother's warlock patron. She told me that when my mother gave birth to me, she begged her patron to watch over me and act as my godmother if something were to happen to her. Her patron gave my mother her word, and she told me that, if I wanted, she could give me magic and a new face so I could get away from my stepmother and my stepsisters. All she asked in exchange was the same conditions that she and my mother had, which were to only use my new powers for good. Also, this new face and my magic would disappear at midnight and wouldn't return until the break of the next dawn. I immediately took the deal. She changed my clothes, gave me a mask to wear, and I've been living a double life ever since. Now, as a warlock, charisma is going to be my strongest score at 17. My worst score, on the other hand, is actually a tie between my strength and my wisdom, though since they're both at 13, they're not really the worst by very much. Now, as mentioned before, my patron is an archfey, and she gave me a replica of her wand, made of crystal with a bronze handle, to use as a spellcasting focus. When Tanner plays me to the right level, he plans on having us go with Pact of the Chain, where my patron will give me a familiar, which will take the shape of a gray rat, who I'll name Augustus, or Gus for short. Also, unlike Leo, my alignment is neutral good, rather than chaotic good. Oh, look over there. It's the next character Tanner wants to meet. Illominar? Thank you, Cynder. I'll take it over from here. Hello, my name is Illuminar Frozen Tree, and like Cynder, I am also a Half-Elf Warlock. Now, when I was a young lad, I used to live in a small village, which was essentially made up of many races and peoples. Growing up, I had many friends, from all walks of life. Rich, poor, high class, low class. You get the idea. However, our old lord, who was a kind and just ruler, passed away, and his son took over. Now, this new lord was the exact opposite of his father, and he believed that people needed to be ruled by strict laws, very strict laws. Drunk with power, he enacted laws that his father would have deemed very unfair, very unjust, and our people suffered badly because of this. Now, the final straw was a law that banned all forms of generosity. If one was not able to pay for something, we were to never give it away for free, or even for less. And if we did, we were to be fined 7 gold coins. We suffered for years under this rule, until someone secretly stood against the law. When one of my childhood friends was found giving something away for free, he was to be fined, but his family could not afford the 7 gold coins. However, in the dead of the night, someone mysteriously gave them enough to pay back the fine. When others in the village found this out, they secretly started giving things to others for free. And when they were fined, they secretly found enough coins to pay back the fine the very next morning. Who was this mysterious stranger giving out these coins? I tell you a secret. It was me. You see, my parents and I were wealthy enough, and we thought this new law was highly unjust. So secretly, I did something about it. Now, this lord found out a mysterious stranger was helping people with their fines, and he tried everything to stop him, from doubling the fines to giving people rewards for turning me in, but no one would. Eventually, the people made him realize that his father would never allow these laws, and so he rescinded the new unjust laws and made way for more fair ones. Then one night, after all these unjust laws were rescinded, I received a vision. A vision of a large man wearing a red fur-lined cloak with white hair and beard and rosy cheeks and nose. He introduced himself to me as Chris Kringle, the Winter King, and he had a proposition for me. Now he told me that he draws his power from the joy and happiness of others. And it was then that we made our pact. He gave me the powers of a warlock, and in exchange I would travel around the world, slaying monsters, spreading joy, and making others' lives better. I have been wandering the world ever since. Now, like with Cynder, my charisma is going to be my strongest score at 16. Whereas on the other hand, my worst score is once again my strength at 8. Now my patron, Chris Kringle, is an archfey, and he gave me for an arcane focus a hexagonal Larimar crystal, embedded in a silver, snowflake-shaped pendant. When Tanner placed me to the correct level, he plans on having us go with Pact of the Tome, which will give me a book of shadows filled with extra cantrips I can use. Also, like Cynder and unlike Leo, my alignment is neutral good rather than chaotic good. Anyway, it was my pleasure, of course, but the next Warlock is getting rather impatient for his next turn, so I suppose I shall send you over to him. Petlanann? Finally! I thought you'd never let me have my turn. Honestly, this guy. Anyway, hey there, I'm Paladin Skydane, and like the previous two, I'm another half-elf warlock. Now, like with the others, my backstory couldn't be any different. Living on the streets, struggling to survive, stealing and begging, it was rough. I never knew my parents, see, and the orphanage I grew up in was abandoned when I was young. The other orphans and I depended on each other to survive, and we became a surrogate family of sorts. Now, one night I had a dream in which I found myself flying through the canopy of a jungle. I saw a small fairy flying with me, and she told me her story. Her name was Tinkerbell, and she created the island of Neverland in the Feywild for a child that she had befriended, a young boy named Peter Pan. Tinkerbell told me that back in the day, she and Peter would have many adventures together. That is, up until I met a girl named Wendy. When they met, he left Neverland with her, where they grew up, they had children, and they died. Tinkerbell was devastated, of course, but she saw his descendants live on from her island in the Feywild. Now, the reason she contacted me was because, as it turns out, Peter Pan's my ancestor. And because I reminded her so much of him, she wanted to make a pact with me, just like she did with him. I thought that was a sweet deal, so I said, why not? So we made a pact. The power she granted me was an echo of the love that she had for my ancestor, and we both hope that someday I can live up to his legacy. Now, like with my fellow warlocks, my charisma is going to be my strongest score, this time at 18, whereas my worst score is going to be my strength at 7, like always. What can I say? When you got magic, who needs strength, you know? Now, my patron is an archfey, as we've established, who gave me an arcane focus in the shape of an emerald orb, encased in a silver pendant shaped like fairy wings. Now, when Tana plays me to the correct level, he plans on us taking Pact of the Chain, and my familial will take the form of a sprite named Dabble. Get it? Like Dabble, Tinka? You get the idea. Also, like Leo and unlike Cynder and Illominar, I am chaotic good rather than neutral good. Anyway, I think I've talked long enough, so I'll pass it over to the next and final warlock. Hey, Fallamir! Petlanann, I'm right here. What is it you want? Oh, my apologies, I didn't see you there. My name is Fallamir-Half-Elf, and as with the other three, I am a half-elf warlock. Now, my story is somewhat similar to Illominar, although most of the details are rather different. I did start out in a small village, made up of many people, of all races, creeds, and religions. When I was young, I used to play with all the other children in the village, and we were all happy together. Growing up, admittedly, I was a bit of a shyster, and I loved to play jokes and pranks on other villagers. Of course, I never pranked anyone if I knew it would hurt them, physically or emotionally. Now one day our old lord, who was kind and fair, died, and his son took his place. Now this new lord was the exact opposite of his father, and he believed that people needed to be ruled by strict laws. Drunk with power, he enacted laws that his father would have deemed unfair and unjust, and our people suffered. We suffered for years under his rule, until, as a form of protest, a small rebellion cropped up protesting these new laws. These protests, led by me, systematically complied with the very letter of the law, complying maliciously, starting with the pettiest of the rules, and working our way up, until our Lord rescinded all of them. I also taught the villagers how to prank the tyrant and his men in ways that were humiliating but ultimately harmless. My village has lived happily ever since, and when this lord tries to enact an unjust law, every villager knows what to do. Now these acts caught the eye of Skili, the archfey known as the god of leprechauns, trickery and illusions, and jester of the Seelie court, who made a pact with me. He would provide me with power, and in exchange he would send me on assignments, pranking other tyrants who he deemed as needed to be taken down a peg or three. I've been wandering the world pranking people as needed ever since. Now, like with my fellow warlocks, my charisma is going to be my highest score at 17, and like always, my worst score is my strength at 9. My patron, of course, is an archfey, as mentioned before, and the arcane focus he gave me takes the shape of a golden pendant, with a green crystal in the shape of a clover in the middle. When Tanner plays me to the correct level, he plans on us having to go with the Pact of the Tome, which, as mentioned before, will grant me a Book of Shadows, which will contain some fun cantrips to use in battle. Also, like with most of the other half-elf characters you've met, and will meet, I am chaotic good. Anyway, it was a pleasure to make your acquaintance, of course, but I really should give it over to the next character. Oh, Fallanann! Yes, Falamir, what is it? Oh, greetings and salutations. My name is Fallanann Lormor Orivalor Alanan Laffenbau III, and as with the others in this video, I am a half-elf. But please call me Fallanann. However, in my case, I am neither bard nor warlock, but a sorcerer. Specifically, a clockwork soul sorcerer. Now, as for my backstory, I was born the son of two noble families. My father was an elven lord, and my mother a human princess. Their marriage was meant to be a marriage of state, two nobles marrying to unify their families. However, eventually they did end up falling in love with each other. After a few years, I was brought into the world. My mother, father, and other members of our family learned that I was different when I started obsessively putting my playthings in certain areas of the playroom, and never wanting anything moved from the spot I put them in. It was only until my magic manifested that my parents finally understood why I was different. There was an old legend that one of my mother's ancestors was once swept up in the great Modon March centuries ago, and the influence of the plane of Mechanus lay dormant in our family since then, at least until I was born. It was at that point my family on both sides realized this legend was more than just a legend. My family kept my magic secret for many years, until a group of adventurers asked to stay the night at our mansion. They regaled us with stories of their adventures, and I was enthralled. I asked my parents if I could go adventuring and see the world for myself. They were doubtful at first, but in the end they were persuaded. Our court wizard enchanted a pair of books with a sympathetic magic spell so that we could talk to each other every day. I've been wandering the world ever since. Now, being a sorcerer, my highest score is my charisma at 18. Whereas my worst score, on the other hand, is once again my strength at 9. Now, due to the chaotic bent that is typical of my elven ancestry, and the lawful bent that is typical of the plane of Mechanus, my alignment is neither chaotic good nor lawful good, but neutral good. Anyway, it was a pleasure to meet you, but I should probably send you over to the next character. Zandeyir? Wait, what? Oh, oh, my apologies. I startled really easily. I'm Zandeyir, Zandeyir Fearfleur, and I am a half-elf druid. Now, my story is really eerily similar to the other druids you've met so far, due to the fact that I was from a druidic village that was destroyed by a dragon. However, unlike the majority of the druids that you've met and will meet, it wasn't an ice-breathing white dragon, but rather an acid-spitting black dragon. Now, like with the others, Tanner has not yet played me, but he does plan on making me a Circle of Spores druid once I get to the correct level. Now, what this means is that we believe that death is as much a part of nature as life, and we see fungi as the connection between them, taking something dead and decaying and bringing new, if strange, life to it. And also, as with most of the other elves you've met and will meet, I am chaotic good. My highest scores in my case are my wisdom and my constitution at 15, but my lowest score is my strength at 5, which is really 2 steps above the lowest ability score can go, so not really great in the strength department. Anyway, it was nice to meet you, of course, but like with my fellow druids, communing with nature is rather calming to me, so I think I'm gonna go do that. Falvalor, you mind taking over from here? Oh, but of course, Zandeyir. How do you do? My name is Falvalor Aramorn Leosaraf Zanforsta Argrip, and I am a half-elf wizard. But please call me Falvalor. Now, my story is actually halfway similar to Fallanann, the sorcerer you met earlier. What with being raised the son of nobles, one an elven lord, the other a human princess. However, from a young age, I was very interested in learning magic. So my parents gathered the best wizard teachers from all around the world. Now, when I decided to start adventuring, mother and father were apprehensive at first, but in the end, they were persuaded. They said I would always be welcomed home if and when I decided to come and visit. Now, as a wizard, my highest score is my intelligence, since that is where we get our magic from, which in my case is at 15. My worst score, on the other hand, is once again my strength at 8. Now, like with most of my fellow half-elf characters, I am of the chaotic good alignment, and Tanner's intent, as soon as he plays as me, is to specialize as a blade singer wizard as soon as I get to the appropriate level. What is blade singing, you ask? Well, blade singing is a delicate art, invented originally by elven wizards, that incorporates both sword play and dance, using a series of intricate and elegant maneuvers that both fend off harm and allow the blade singer to channel their magic into cunning defenses and devastating attacks. Anywho, it was a pleasure to make your acquaintance, of course. However, we've got to round off this group of characters, and I think I know just the half elf. Oh, Rafelor, I believe I hear someone making fun of your childhood hero. Gotta go. Who insulted him? Let me at him! Let me at him! Oh, apologies if I scared you. I am Rafelor. Rafelor Wilderage. Once again, I am half-elf. However, I am half-elf barbarian. To make a long backstory short, I basically have the exact same story as Leo, the bard you met earlier. However, unlike him, I never knew either of my birth parents, and the troupe of performers found me, took me in, and raised me as one of their own. Now, once again, since Tanner has not played me yet, I do not have a character level. But the plan is, when he eventually does play me, when I reach the right level, I will take the barbarian path of wild magic. Now, what this means is my rage, unlike most barbarians, who merely gain enhanced strength, durability, and speed, will manifest itself as a randomized wild magic effect. Tanner finds this fitting due to the fact that I am half elf, and therefore essentially part fae. Now, in terms of ability scores, my best score is my constitution at 14, and my worst score is my wisdom at 9. And of course, like with most of the others on this list, my alignment is chaotic good. Anyway, I think it's high time Tanner wrap up here. Oi, Tanner, wrap it up here! Rafelor, what have I told you and the other barbarians? Just because you're barbarians does not mean you have to be so frickin' aggressive all the time. Honestly, this guy. Anyway, and there we have it. That was the 6th set of D&D characters that I created but have not played yet. If you like this video and you want more, please leave it a like and subscribe down below so you don't miss any new ones. Also, if you have any other ideas for any future videos, please leave your thoughts in the comments down below, and who knows, it might just happen. Alright, well, that's all the time I have for this video, so I'll see you all next week with a brand new one. See you guys then.